Welcome back to Tied Down TV, the punk rock opinion show with me, Geoff.
I'm Danny.
And today we're doing top 5 punk and hardcore bands that feature celebrities or famous people.
Yeah. Punk and hardcore bands that feature celebrities, famous people. People who are basically have celebrity for a reason outside of
Punk and hardcore.
Punk and hardcore,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So for instance, you can't say, right, I'm picking the Doors because they had Jim Morrison in.
And he was more famous than the Doors as a collective.
But he was ultimately famous for being in the Doors.
Yeah.
So you can't, that's not the kind of thing we're talking about here. We're talking about people who have got celebrity outside of punk and hardcore, but have a past history link to punk and hardcore.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few of them. You know, if you look, there's quite a few famous ones, maybe some lesser known ones as well.
There was a few surprises I came across. Researching this.
Exactly. I've tried to go for bands that I'm into. Do you know what I mean? Because there is so many. You could pick bands that you don't care about, but we know that they had a famous member. I've picked the top 5. These are bands I like.
4 out of 5 of mine are bands I like. 1 isn't, but I just felt like it needed a mention.
Oh well, there's loads that need that could do with a mention. Do you know what I mean? But I'm gonna go first here. I'm gonna take the torch and I'm gonna go first. So I'm gonna go Body Count, featuring famous rapper and actor Ice-T. Whether or not you're a fan or not, you gotta respect someone like Ice-T coming from that LA rap scene, especially at the time. He is the original gangster.
Yeah.
Especially at the time, coming out of that time when things were just starting to cross over. But for someone from his background to come out and start his own hardcore punk band, crossover band, Body Count, you got to respect that. Do you know what I mean? And I love Ice-T. I love Ice-T. One of the first rap albums I was ever introduced to was Original Gangster.
It's great.
And I love his and one of the things as well I like about Ice-T is when you hear him being interviewed and he talks about metal and rock and roll and all that, he knows what he's talking about. You can tell he's got a real love for it. Yeah, he's got a real love for it. He's not just doing it to make a bit more money as a side hustle. He loves it. I saw him last year and they were amazing. It was one of the best live shows I've seen. The band started in 1990. He said in an interview that he got the band together as a platform for his best schoolmate Ernie C, who's still the guitarist in Body Count. But yeah, Body Count for me is my first choice. Obviously, that is a perfect example of a famous person in a hardcore / punk band.
Absolutely. So first one for me, I'm going to go for Scream, DC hardcore band, who between the years of 1986 and 1990 featured a Mr. David Grohl on drums, who obviously more famously went on to drum for Nirvana and then from the Foo Fighters became a worldwide rock star. Everyone, your fucking mum knows who Dave Grohl is, you know what I mean? But for those 4 years, he drummed for Scream. He recorded 2 albums with them. Fumble was the last one he did. What was the other one? No More Censorship, I think it was called. There's a bit more melodic. I know maybe not even my favourite period of Scream.
Definitely not my favourite.
I still enjoy it.
But this was an obvious one. Yeah, everyone knows about this one. But it's one that needs to be brought up.
Needs to be brought up, 100%. And also for me, and regular followers of the channel know how much I love DC hardcore and bands like Scream and things like that. So he had to come up. Also, we've had big love for Nirvana, the Nevermind album especially. Again, Grohl on drums on that, and he's a fucking jobbing musician all round. He's played on hundreds of albums probably by now for loads of bands, but like you said, like Danny said, it's an obvious one, but that's my first pick. Scream.
This is probably my most obscure one, not for the celebrity included, but the band themselves. So my next pick is a band called Clear Light from 1967 who play a garage psychedelia sound. If you're into bands like Love, and everyone I know whose taste I respect, every person I know whose taste I respect is into the band Love. They're a brilliant band, aren't they? So Love, Strawberry Alarm Clock, stuff like that, 13th Floor Elevators, that type of ballpark we're talking here.
All the stuff,
They released one album and it's this album right here. Now, the gentleman in question, the celebrity, you probably won't recognise from this picture, but we're talking about this guy right here. That is a certain Clifty Young. Now, this is the only album these released. He is the singer, Clifty Young, but he's also an actor who you will recognise from films such as The Craft, classic early 90s slasher film, Dr. Giggles, Suicide Kings, as well as many others. Very, very recognisable guy. It was funny actually because I bought this album from Probe when I was going on a proper psychedelia, proto-punk spike, where I was just buying all sorts of stuff from there that looked good. And you look at that cover and it's just the writing and everything.
It's gotta be good, isn't it?
Yeah, and I got it home and I was listening to it and it was great. And I didn't even know until I read the booklet that Cliff de Young was in the band. And then when I found out he was a singer, I was even more shocked. There's a photo of him inside there and I was like, oh my god, that's that guy from fucking The Craft and Suicide Kings, and he's the singer of this band. Absolutely mental, really good band. If you're into that 60s psychedelia and garage stuff, you should definitely check out Clear Light. And yeah, I think that's a little hidden gem for people, that one. Not many people know about that one.
So nice, that was a little curveball one, innit?
Yeah.
So my next one, I've gone for RKL, Rich Kids on LSD. And this is a bit of a famous story now, but very early incarnation of this band, garage days of the band, featured one Josh Brolin on drums. So if you're not familiar with Josh Brolin, where have you been? A-list Hollywood actor nowadays, but Goonies, he had a resurgence, didn't he, with No Country for Old Men. He was an American Gangster, the remake of True Grit, and he's quite known for a lot of people now in the fucking Marvel cinematic
Don't
universe.
love his Marvel stuff, but I love Josh Brolin.
I don't like the Marvel, but neither of us are fans of that, but he's quite famous for being a part of that, isn't he? Yeah, and by his own words, he said, very early version, he was kind of part of it. He was very good friends with Jason Sears, the vocalist of RKL, who sadly passed away. And I've heard one or two people refute it and say, oh no, he didn't have that much to do with it, and but he seemed pretty genuine. I've listened to a few times the interview where he talks about it on a podcast, and he says, he was there, he was around at the time, he had Moby, and he used to, fucking bleach it and dye it and all kinds of shit, and he was heavily indebted in that punk scene in America and California in the 80s. So yeah, that's my second pick.
That's I love Josh Brolin.
Another film should have mentioned Thrashing.
I knew I was going to say when you were saying it, I didn't even know if you'd seen it, but as you were saying it,
hell,
if you want to know you just have to watch Thrashing.
Skating,
and the music and the soundtrack. I think Red Hot Chili Peppers appear in that film very early on in their career, where they were playing a more punk style in a really small club as well. Well, I love Josh Brolin.
Yeah, he's fucking dude. Anyway.
Next, I've gone the band Inside Out, featuring Zac De La Rocha, famously from Rage Against the Machine. Zac De La Rocha had been around the hardcore scene in the 80s and early 90s for a while in quite a few bands. He'd been in Hard Stance, Far Side. But I think this right here, 7-inch, which most people who watch this, I'm sure, have either heard it or have got a copy anyway. There he is, young Zac De La Rocha there. That's definitely his best work, I think, pre Rage Against the Machine. Not so much, not many signs of the protest lyrics and all that. Not many signs of that during this period with him. I guess if you could go back in time, maybe you wouldn't know that was to come. There's not really more lyrics about self-struggle and all that type of stuff, and but brilliant record. I'm sure everyone knows out there who's heard this. It's it's brilliant, classic, one of those revelation records, golden nuggets from that time that came out. But this is definitely Zac De La Rocha's best stuff before he joined Rage Against the Machine. Obviously became one of the biggest biggest bands in the world, I guess, in that time, doing soundtracks for The Matrix and all sorts of stuff.
Awesome. So my third pick, so this is the one where I'm actually not a fan of the band, but I've gone for From First to Last. And if those of you know who the band are, they're a post-hardcore band, or were a post-hardcore band. I'm not sure if they're still actually going, but their frontman for their first two albums anyway, they had someone else for their first EP, was Mr. Sonny Moore, who goes by the name Skrillex. So I picked it, like I say, because Skrillex is a globally known dubstep DJ, producer, like I say, internationally known across the world. And yeah, he fronted two albums for a post-hardcore band, came up in that scene, and I don't know nothing about dubstep, but I like to hope that there's a DIY element to some sides of that music as well, of doing it yourself in your bedroom and maybe taking inspiration. I don't know if there's too much connection genre-wise to those two, ethos-wise anyway, but as I say, I felt like he needed to be a mention because he was a big name at one point, especially. You couldn't get away from that song. Was it Bangarang? Couldn't get away from hearing it, especially if you were in clubs in the 2000s. But yeah, that's it. I haven't got much to say about it. Like I say, 'cause I'm not actually a big fan of the band or anything, but big celebrity came out of that.
I don't know about really much about First to Last, and I don't know fuck all about Skrillex, so there you go. So I've got nothing to say about it. So my next pick, I've gone the band Carnivore out of Brooklyn, New York, featuring Pete Steele, most famously from Typo Negative. Before he started Typo Negative, using a band called Carnivore. New York, I'd say they're a New York hardcore band. You know, they're very crossover styley, but they're definitely part of the New York hardcore scene early on. That released a couple of albums. The second album, Retaliation, from 1987, is a classic, I'd say, definitely. But another good thing about Pete Steele, and this is how influential they were. As far as I know, Pete Steele gave Biohazard their name.
Okay.
Because they used to go, you know, they really, guess all them bands, you know, when you think about the Brooklyn scene, like Biohazard and Life of Agony and Carnivore and all them. I think Pete Steele was somewhat someone they all looked up to. I think he was slightly older, and they all looked up to him. And I think like a couple of the Biohazard guys were around his house one day, and I think I could be wrong here. I might have even dreamt this, but I'm pretty sure I read an interview with one of the Biohazard guys. Can't remember. They went round to his house once, and he was wearing a doctor's coat with a Biohazard sign on, and he came in and he said, "This is what you should call your band," and they did.
The rest is
so yeah, but yeah, Carnivore, really good band, really good New York hardcore, thrash, crossover, whatever you want to call it, band. Really fucking unapologetic in their lyrics, and they're pretty pretty not very politically correct.
Definitely
but
not.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So next pick for me, I'm going for Vatican Commandos. So Vatican Commandos from 1983. They played for a couple of years. They released this as their first EP called Hit Squad for God.
Brilliant EP.
Brilliant EP, yeah. If you don't know that, you should definitely get it. And on guitar was a guy who nowadays anyway goes by the name of Moby. So Moby, as I talked a little bit about Skrillex, a tiny bit, Moby, when it comes to electronic music and things like that, especially if you're not in that scene like I'm not, he's one of the biggest names.
Well, Moby I do know quite a bit about, and I'm actually quite a bit of a Moby fan.
I'm a Moby fan.
Out of Vatican Commandos,
same, as I was going to say.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was in VC for not very long, and he recorded that first 7-inch. And then he started going off and doing his thing. I listened to his audiobook not too long ago as well. He always retained his love for hardcore and punk, but he started getting into his electronic and tape loops and sampling, and went off from there, became a massive DJ. Obviously, if you know the song Go.
Well, yeah,
which
Go
featured the Twin Peaks sample and things like that.
Well, Go's one of his older tracks.
That's
now,
what I mean.
It was a brilliant progressive house track.
Yeah,
from back
absolutely.
In the day.
I was supposed to say he used the notes from one of the Twin Peaks pieces of music.
Yeah.
But obviously his massive game-changing album was Play, and if you're from our generation, late 90s, you couldn't get away from a lot of the songs off that album because he sold a lot of them to adverts and shit, so they were fucking everywhere.
Didn't he do a song on the Beach soundtrack?
He might have done, to be fair. Yeah, he fucking did a lot. And he's still very, very prolific now. He puts out ambient albums all the time, studio albums every couple of years, I think, and remix albums, all kinds. Constant, very heavy on the animal rights as well. And as I say, I'm big fan of Moby.
Even when he'd play and when he'd do his residencies at nightclubs doing DJing, you'd always see him in punk and hardcore shirts.
Almost every picture I see of him now, he's got Black Flag Void or whatever, like some American hardcore t-shirts on. Yeah, so there you go, Vatican Commandos.
Just to stay on that a second, like my brother, whereas I maybe went down a punk and metal route, my brother was a big into the rave and dance scene.
Yeah.
And I remember he used to look through his mix mags, magazine Mix Mag, all the dance heads used to buy. You used to always see Moby in there and agnostic front and deep discharge shirts all the time and stuff. But bit of a fan of Moby even outside of Vatican Commandos. My last pick, I've gone Septic Death, featuring famous artist Pushead. Now, Septic Death, this might be a little bit of a cop-out choice in a way, because Septic Death have their own place of being really influential for grindcore and faster hardcore from the 80s.
Definitely.
But I definitely think the argument is made that Pushead is more famous for his artwork and graphic design for other bands. I think more people probably know Pushead for that than his own band, which
more
is
people
Septic
will have
Death.
seen his artwork
without
on
even
t-shirts,
without even knowing
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Than have heard any of his records.
But he's done artwork for Corrosion of Conformity, Misfits, Metallica, SSD, just to name a few. So I think it definitely counts in this that we've got, you know.
Yeah, it counts.
So that's my last pick. That is Septic Death for Pushead.
Nice. Last pick for me. So I've gone for Germs. And this is my favourite one, to be fair. So
one of my favourites, this one.
In 1977, featured someone on drums called Belinda Carlisle, who went by the name...
Circles in the Sand.
Yeah, Heaven is a Place on Earth.
Yeah.
But actually fronted the Go-Go's as well, who are a great 80s band. She went with the name of Dottie Danger, and she got on drums. I read a little interview with her about it, and she said, like, in the punk scene at that time, you had like the opiate crowds who were all into the heroin, and you had the crowds who were into the psychedelics. And she said, I was into like the psychedelics. Darby Crasher obviously was into his heroin. She said, but there's just something magnetic. He was a genius, and everyone was drawn to him, wanted to work with him. So she did. Unfortunately, she contracted mono, I believe, and had to actually leave the band. Didn't end up ever playing a show with them. So, which is a bit of a shame. Yeah. But I love the fact that she was genuinely in the Germs for a period.
I love it.
And as I say, went on to front the Go-Go's, who the Go-Go's as well should get a good shout out because they're the first, and correct me if I'm wrong, this might not be true now, but as of a couple of years ago, no, it was the first female band who wrote all their own songs, played all their own instruments to hit a #1 album. Okay. And I don't know if it's been done since. It hadn't, as I say, up until a couple of years ago. But yeah, that's my last pick.
Yeah, and that's not, if you look at early pictures of Belinda Carlisle, it's not that shocking.
I guess obviously, she had the look. Like,
I didn't know until you told me. But like when I, it's not that shocking when you.
I go. Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, so that's our picks.
Those are our top fives. So let us know yours. There's probably loads we forgot.
Yeah,
didn't talk about. And
I bet you there's some that we don't even know. I bet you there's some that have got to be loads of little
gems.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
But so thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and ring the bell if you want them notifications. Jump on the socials, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. Give us some comments, likes, follows. Appreciate it all. We'll see you next time.